Severe Tropical Cyclone Fina has moved further over the Timor Sea. The Category 3 system is now sitting about 80 kilometres away from Darwin and is forecast to remain a severe tropical cyclone until tomorrow.
ABC meteorologist Nate Byrne joins us now for the very latest, and I can see that you've seen the light of day there where you are, Nate. What was it like overnight? Take us through it.
Finally, it's so good to be able to see that the sun has risen, because last night, I tell you what, it felt like a completely different world once the sun set. I mean, it was already a wild afternoon, but once the sun set, conditions really rapidly deteriorated. Even as the cyclone was passing, things were changing here in Darwin. On a minute-to-minute basis, the winds were literally screaming underneath my door last night. I couldn't find any way to stop it. The rain was just incredible. There was a wall of water outside my balcony window, and the rain was even moving upwards instead of down because of the winds gusting between the buildings. It has been a very, very wild night, and I'm sure sleepless for many. The preparations, of course, meant that most of Darwin was hunkered down, ready to go for Tropical Cyclone Fina. But that intensification of the winds overnight really, really reiterated to so many people just how dangerous this system was. And it's not done with us yet either. I've just got the all clear to leave my secure place here and start to move around. Just the CBD, nowhere beyond there at the moment. So I'm going to be able to get out a little bit later for you and see just what some of the destruction around the city has been like.
So Nate, at this stage, what do we know about how much rain and wind was recorded?
It was an incredible drenching. I mean, an absolute deluge of rain. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the gauges didn't actually record the right amount of rainfall, because often it wasn't going down into the gauge, it was going across the top of it. We're certainly talking about triple digits in the gauges for a wide swathe of the top ends, northwest, and the winds well in excess of 100 kilometres an hour for many. In fact, I've been able to see from here, and now that the light's up, I can show you trees down in the city. Just off my balcony here, you can see a couple of trees. I'd put them, my best guess from this distance, probably 3 or 4 metre trees that have just toppled. Now, that means that we saw some destructive wind gusts. I mean, there are bits of metal that have been lifted from roofs. On the other side of the building where my room is, I've seen some balcony damage. The Bureau of Meteorology, of course, has been keeping a close eye on it. The problem with this sort of thing, though, is that it's kind of like having something cooking in the oven with a thermometer, but the thermometer remains in place and you don't know exactly where you're putting your, say, roast chicken. And so I'm talking about the observations here. So the observation points are set, but where that system actually ended up really determined whether or not we saw the worst of the conditions. So it's whether or not you're measuring the temperature in the wing or in, you know, the meatiest part of your chicken. I don't know if that analogy works.
We're following.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm working on just a couple hours sleep here, so, you know. But the Bureau of Meteorology has had a really good idea about the effects of this system, and especially the rainfall. It's been mind-blowing just out to the east of Darwin. Here's what Dean Narramore had to say just a little earlier.
Now, some of the numbers are pretty big rainfall-wise around the Darwin area. We've seen about 150 to 200 millimetres. Darwin itself around 180. Some of our coastal areas about 220, 240. But a bit further inland, we've had some feeder bands moving through Middle Point and around the Noonamah area. Middle Point is approaching 400 millimetres since 9 o'clock yesterday morning. So we're likely seeing some pretty big flooding out through there and flash flooding with that heavy rainfall. And it's those feeder bands that we're going to continue to see streaming across the northwestern parts of top end today that could bring another 50, 100, 150 millimetres for some locations. Now, wind-wise, quickly, yesterday we saw winds gust over 100 kilometres an hour, Gun Point around 109, Darwin Airport 107, Fanny Bay 97. So we saw a lot of winds in that 90 to 110 kilometre hour range yesterday evening.
That's Dean Narramore speaking there.
That gauge out of Middle Point, by the way, team, 423 millimetres now. That is Almost half a metre of rain. Incredible volumes of water.
Now, Nate, how's the day expected to pan out? People obviously will be getting out and about safely, checking out the damage, but what's the weather looking like for those who are out and about?
Oh, it's not done with us yet. On any other day, the weather that we're expecting today would be the kind of thing we'd be warning about and saying, hey, don't go out if you don't have to. It's gusty. We're likely to see heavy rainfall, some thunderstorms. But now we're on the outer edge of Fina. It's coming in bands. It's those arms that you typically see on a cyclone, you know, the ones that stretch out and curve around. That's the concern for today. So it's still incredibly gusty out here right now. We're still seeing bands of rain come through. One just has. There's another aiming for Darwin in the next 20 minutes, half an hour or so. That's going to be the case for today. So it'll be on and off, pretty wild and then calming, wild and calming. So people might get complacent, especially after last night. I mean, I think maybe the best way to describe it, most people have been through a severe thunderstorm at one point or another, you know, when all of a sudden the rain just absolutely buckets down and you've got wild gusty winds. Imagine that instead of lasting for 5 or 10 minutes, lasting for 5, 6, 7 hours. That's what it was like last night. So by comparison, this feels pretty good and seems pretty nice, but it is still incredibly dangerous, so people should take care. I mean, we've got power outages, lines probably down, trees certainly fallen, debris on the road, the potential for more heavy rainfall, and it's still gusty. So those trees that have been battered for hours and hours and hours, some of them might just need a little extra nudge, and we could be seeing that with more gusty winds through the day today. But as we get into this afternoon, the system should slide away to the southwest and conditions should significantly ease from there. So some good news as we start to look to recovery for this region.
And also we know, Nate, that Cyclone Fina is now tracking towards northern WA. So what's the advice for residents there?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So at the moment, the north of Western Australia is under cyclone watch. So that's for gales developing within 24 to 48 hours. As Fina travels across the ocean between the Territory and the top of WA, it's going to encounter some pretty favourable conditions for intensification. So we're expecting to see it really reach Category 4 strength later on today. Now that's going to be winds gusting well in excess of 200 kilometres an hour, but it's over ocean and should be far away from the mainland that we won't be feeling those major effects. So that might give Western Australia some cause for concern. However, once it starts to make an approach to WA, it is likely to encounter an unfavourable atmosphere. Unfavourable for cyclones, favourable for people, and it's likely that it'll rapidly weaken as we go through Monday. Probably we'll be talking about Tropical Cyclone Fina as a Category 2 system by Monday as it starts to make its approach to the WA coast, and it should then wash out pretty quickly 12 to 24 hours after that, and hopefully come Tuesday it'll be ex-Tropical Cyclone Fina, and hopefully Western Australia won't feel the worst of the effects. Still, the advice is have your preparations complete and ready, because if this changes its direction just a little bit, or if it manages to maintain some of that inertia of its Category 4 strength, then we could see some incredibly dangerous conditions for northern WA.